Hello and welcome to a new episode of airportceo here on BongoPlanes, where we are continuing with our new airport, trying to replicate Berlin-Tegel, also known as TXL. And our main focus in today's episode will be the interior of Terminal 1. And before we get started, of course, don't forget, if you should end up enjoying this video, to leave a like. That will be very much helping us out. And of course, if you're new around here, you're always welcome to hit subscribe. Alright, so the first thing we need is a first floor here on this terminal building, and we have constructed in a way that it basically is a circle, so it will actually go over the roads that we constructed for the land side in the last episode. So I guess technically in real life, if you arrived at Berlin-Tegel and you wanted to depart, you would probably enter the building around the second floor, and arrivals would go out of the building around the first floor. So we can't really do that here because we can't lift the roads from the ground floor. So we will actually have to kind of create a mix of departure and arrival, both on ground floor level. Obviously the security zone, so where people are boarding and deboarding the aircraft, that will be on first floor. So that's just a little bit of a compromise compared to the real Berlin-Tegel. The building itself is relatively narrow, just as the airport in real life, and people will enter the building and fairly straight be able to go to the check-in desk. Also, that is of course inspired by real life. Obviously, we don't really have one major area where we have all the check-ins, so we will have the check-in spread out across the building, and that also means we will have multiple security checks all over the place, from where people then can enter the security zone, from where they then can board their aircraft. That is obviously not very efficient. That is probably also going to have some issues all over the place, where capacity might not be fully sufficient. But that is, again, just as in real life. This airport design, or this kind of airport design, was really designed for traffic numbers from the 60s or 70s, not in any way for 21st century traffic numbers that we see today. And that is also why the real airport Berlin-Tegel is struggling so much. We will try to, of course, alleviate that as much as possible, but there will probably be some parts where we just can't really do anything about it. But the whole challenge here is simply just trying to recreate this type of airport building, or this airport design, and to see if we can actually recreate it here in this game, and of course have a little bit of fun with it. Now, ultimately, what we are building here is not set in stone, so there will still be some changes, there will be some adjustments here and there. I, for example, already know, because I've already recorded it, that all the baggage bays that we have placed in all the corners of the buildings, they will actually be removed, and I will be using those rooms for baggage retrieval areas, and the baggage bays, they will actually be moved entirely out of that building and into a new construction. But that is coming at a later stage. What we are working on here right now is then the underground area, because we have in the last episode made the first structures for these small satellite terminals that are inspired by Geneva. Now, obviously in real life, Berlin-Tegel doesn't have those, but we need to somehow give us a little bit of extra room for placing the bus stops that we need for transferring passengers to the remote stands that we have here at the airport. And we can't do that at the main terminal because we have entirely surrounded that with aircraft stands. So we have made these small remote terminal buildings, and we will be connecting those with tunnels. So that means, of course, also we will have to lead passengers downwards. For that, we will of course be using escalators. And so that is really inspired by Geneva, and it's just to help us out to be able to make something here that is looking a little bit realistic, and of course, again, making something that is actually functional. But imagine if we had an upgrade to the multi-floor update that the game developers released this year. where we could also actually have multi-floors with roads, so not just tunnels but also going upwards, because then basically the entire midsection we had here, for example, we could transform and make into boarding places, bus stops for the airside buses that we needed for remote stands, because then we could actually take the entire arrival section for passengers and move it one level up. That would be absolutely amazing if that was possible. So far it's not, so we just have to make do with what we've got, and that means, for example, making these small remote terminals and then work our way around that and make it feasible for what we want to make here. But I think it's all right. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. It's not entirely 100% accurate to Berlin-Tegel, but it's also not entirely wrong, because as we already discussed the last time, there are some remote buildings actually at Berlin-Tegel basically surrounding these terminals. Most of them are probably just used for GSE or cargo. We will use them a little bit for passenger traffic as well. Okay, not 100% accurate, but also not entirely wrong that you have some buildings around the terminal buildings on the air side. Alright, so we have placed some windows here at the ground floor level facing the land side, just to make the terminal a little bit nicer, and we are now working on the areas that will be behind the check-in desks, because that's basically where we want to lead people. After they've checked in, they should go straight to one of the sides of the check-in counters and then be able to enter the security area. So for that we will of course need security checks, and then we will have escalators leading the passengers upwards to level 1, from where they will then be departing and boarding their aircraft. That is the idea here, really keeping ways, or the footpaths, the walkways, as short as possible, and hopefully also a little bit efficient in this case, because we won't have too much traffic going crossing the terminal building, but basically you're walking in one direction and hopefully should never have to go back again in another direction. That's at least the idea. If it will work, we will find out in, I guess, in a few episodes, when we will start having some traffic here at the airport. That is the thing, of course. Also, right now this is a lot of construction, and I know that most of you guys also just want to see some planes here at the here at the airport, and also want to, you know, start choosing which airlines we should have here, and so on and so on. I know that is, of course, a part that is exciting a lot of you guys. It's also exciting me, but obviously we need some working infrastructure before we can get to that point. But I'm really trying to get there as fast as possible, at least with a little part of the airport, so we can start also have some traffic coming in and out and see some traffic flow. And it will also help us when we see some passengers arrive to see, okay, how is this section working? Do we need to adjust it a little bit at the other parts of the airport, or is it as it should be? Is it just working? And can we just continue with the construction as is? So construction of this terminal is actually quite challenging, because we don't have much space, but we have loads of things we need to fit in here. So doing that efficiently without wasting any space, that is really the main challenge, because we of course want to have shops, we want to have check-in, we want to have security, we need to have space for escalators bringing people up and down the different levels of the building, and we also have to have some space for our staff, and of course bathrooms, and so on and so on. So the main layout is basically, we have the check-in desks. Behind that we have a little bit of space where we will have the baggage belts. Behind that then there will be the space where we need people to go to security checks and the escalators going upwards. But then we have some room left there which we can't really use for other things. So in most of these cases we probably end up using them as staff rooms, because that will really help us out with all the workers we have at the check-in desk. It's actually quite ingenious in that sense that the staff rooms will be really close to where we have a lot of people working, which is great, because then they don't have to walk as far when they are taking a break from their shifts, and that is really nice. They will be also kind of hidden away, so they won't be as visible as maybe in other layouts or airport designs I've made, or as in the last airport we made. So, and we, as I say, we really use the space to the last square meter, and we really need to do so because we really don't have much space to give away. So if we quickly go back to the remote terminal, the satellite terminals that we will have, the whole idea here is actually that we take a lot of the operations and actually move them underground. So the only parts that actually will be needed overground are actually basically a building where we can place the escalators for people to go up to these bus stops. All the check-in, that will be done underground because we have way more space here. We can basically have as much space as we want. The other thing is that we will also be doing underneath here is actually the security check. So the security checks for the gates that will be using the remote stands, they won't be having the security checks right at the check-in desk as the other gates will have, but passengers for those gates will actually go to the check-in desk, go behind them just as everybody else, but then they will, instead of going through that security check, they'll actually go past that, go down the escalators, and then underground we will have the security checks. And there we just have as much space as we want, and we can pretty much, yeah, just make it as efficient as we want. So that will really help us out because it will also take away a little bit of pressure of passengers going through the terminal that otherwise would have to go through, would probably will be a bottleneck, the security area. And this, yeah, the check-in area, I hope, is big enough, but the security checks will probably be bottlenecks, and we can at least take a little bit of pressure off those because we will simply have the security checks and the boarding and all that separate and all that underground from the rest of the system. So yeah, that's how we basically want to use or operate the remote stands. But yeah, so while the construction of that is going on here in the background, we have pretty much done the things I wanted to focus on here in this episode, which of course means we have basically reached the end of this video. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to smash the like button. That really helps us out. If you're new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. And the next episode of Airport CEO will also be really nice because we will actually be working on an entirely new section of the airport, and we will be making something that I have never done before, not even in a test build, so that will be quite exciting. I'm really excited about it, and I hope you will be as well. Anyways, of course, you know the drill. Throughout the entire Christmas period, we are uploading on a daily basis here on the channel. Every day, at least one new video. And yeah, I don't think I can really plug much more than that. Of course, I'm trying to press out these videos from Airport CEO out as fast as possible as well. So normally, of course, we do that every Sunday, but I'm trying to also get it out on a second day throughout the week, probably every Thursday. But yeah, you will probably already know by now. Anyway, now I really don't think I can plug anymore, so it is time for me to say thank you so much for having watched today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and with that, I'm checking out, and bye.